welcome back to the lab. If it's your first time here, go ahead and click subscribe to ensure that you get constant updates on videos that I post regarding science, engineering, technology, DIY, and making. Today in the lab, we're going to be setting a Raspberry Pi up with a base operating system image. This is part of our Maker Basics series because a lot of the projects we do are based on the Raspberry Pi. It just made sense, instead of repeating over and over again how to set Raspbian up for every single project, that I make one video which gets us to a core image that we will work with for all of our projects. So lab code up. We're going to learn something today. Okay, so here we are at the PC. We're just going to go ahead and get ready to download Raspbian. We're going to open Chrome here, go to the Raspberry Pi website, and choose Raspbian under the Downloads section. Now you see there are two versions here. There's the light version, which does not contain a UI, and then there's the Raspbian with Pixel. We're going to go ahead and choose the light version without the UI. This will be the basis that we use for most of our projects, since most of them will be accessed via SSH. Now, depending on the speed of your internet connection, this can obviously take a bit of time. The images are, I'd say, medium-sized. Without the UI, it is definitely smaller. And we're going to go ahead and open this once it's done downloading, and inside the compressed file you're going to find an image. We're going to copy that, and we're going to put it on our desktop so it's easy to find later. The speed of this is obviously dependent on how fast your computer is at uncompressing this file. So now that it's uncompressed, we're going to go ahead and launch the SD card formatter. This is a tool. If you've ever installed an OS for the Raspberry Pi on an SD card, it resizes and creates several partitions, which makes it very hard to use later. If you check in my computer at any point, you can see that usually it looks like it's around a 60 meg card now, and that's obviously not what we want. So under the SD card formatter, we want to click Options, and we want to turn on the size adjustment. This will format the card and bring it back to its full capacity. You obviously want to verify that you are doing this to the right drive. All of the things we do, I'll probably mention this many times, is dependent on you doing it to the right drive. If you do it to the wrong drive, you are going to have problems and probably a very bad day. So we see that both of these line up, and we're going to go ahead and click Format. It's going to confirm once again that we want to format this drive, and tell us that everything is about to be erased. Okay, so at this point our SD card has been formatted, and if you're looking at my computer, you can now see that this says it's an 8 gig SD drive, or SD card, which is correct. So the next tool that we want to use is the Win32 Disk Imager. This will take the file that we downloaded from the Raspberry Pi downloads page and write it to the SD card. So we're going to click on this folder browse button. We're going to go back to the desktop where we put the image file. And we're going to select the Raspbian Lite image file that we downloaded. Now, for some reason, this always goes back to the background after I do this, but we're just going to reopen this. And once again, we are going to verify that we are dealing with the right drive. If you run this utility against the wrong drive, let's say the C drive of your computer is no longer going to work anymore. So make sure that you have the right drive, and it will warn you as such. And we're going to click OK, and it's going to begin to write the operating system to this SD card. Depending on the speed of your computer and the speed of your SD card reader, this can take a while, but usually it's not too bad. Okay, so it says that the write was successful, which is exactly what we're looking for. So we're going to go ahead and click OK, and then we're going to exit this tool. The next step is very important. You want to eject the SD card. Not safely removing these does do damage to SD cards and will significantly shorten their life. So always take a second and do the safely remove and wait for the computer to tell you that it's okay to pull it out. Alright, so now we're back at the Raspberry Pi. We have the SD card, which as you know is the Raspberry Pi's hard drive. So we're just going to go ahead and insert it on the bottom here and make sure that it clicks into place. Okay, once that is complete, we're going to be looking at putting power to the Raspberry Pi, and you can see it booting here. One of the things to note is that the first thing it's going to do is resize the file system, which is exactly what I was talking about before, and will get you access to all of the space on the SD card. The lightning bolt at the top right just means that the power supply I'm using is currently being overtaxed. Now there's a lot of text that flies by the screen as Raspbian boots. If you don't understand what that means, that's fine. There's a lot of information here and a lot of detail that's usually hidden by Windows or other desktop operating systems that are shown to us here. So we'll just go ahead and ignore it, and we can dig in later and find out if we want to know anything specific about this. Okay, so now we're at the login prompt. The default username for the Raspberry Pi is Pi, and the default password is Raspberry. Okay, so now that we're inside and at the command prompt itself, the first thing I like to do is do a sudo -i. This tells the Raspberry Pi that we want to operate as root, and you can see that there with the root at Raspberry Pi. We're going to go ahead and run Raspy Config, which will allow us to set many options in the configuration of the Raspberry Pi. First one we're going to do is SSH. Now, SSH stands for Secured Shell and allows us remote access to the device. This is handy when you're using it as an embedded device in a project that might not have a screen or a keyboard. The secondary option that I want to do is under Advanced Options. We want to look at memory split. Since the majority of our projects do not use graphics, we want to change the default 64 megs assigned to video down to 16 to give the actual core and processing areas as much RAM as possible, since we won't be using any graphics inside of the chip itself. The other option is again under Advanced Options, and we want to go down to Audio. Right? This allows you to determine what channel the audio is put out in. I like to force the HDMI port so that all audio is pushed through the HDMI. So we're going to go ahead and reboot now so that all of those changes take effect. You'll notice the same wall of text that you've seen many times before. Right, and now it's rebooting one more time. Okay, so now we're back at this screen. Once again, the default username is Pi, and the default password is Raspberry. Okay, so now that we're at the command prompt, one of the things that we want to do is again switch into the super user mode. And it does warn us that we have the Raspberry Pi set up to accept SSH with its default password. So we do a PASSWD space pi command to change the password to something that we will remember. Okay, and it tells us that the password has been updated successfully. I'm going to go ahead and reboot. You really technically don't need to. I just want to verify that this password has actually changed. And we're rebooting again with that wall of text. On a side note, if you want to avoid that lightning bolt and the device being underpowered, I always try to use a 2 amp USB power supply, or you can feed 5 volts directly into the device. So we're going to log in with Pi. Okay, so with all of that done, you now have a Raspberry Pi with a base Raspbian OS on it already. This is a great place for us to start for other projects. I hope you learned something today. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you didn't, tell me why. Don't forget to subscribe, and there's a little bell icon beside the subscribe button. If you click that, you will be notified by email of every video that I post. Feel free to share this video with anybody you feel might benefit from being part of our channel. And thank you for joining me in the lab.